Hello again, it's Mr. Pete, your YouTube shop teacher, and this is episode number 57B, the answers to my What Is It series on mystery tools. So you watched the 57A, and really most people had the answers for this. They were pretty simple, but let's go through them. Item 1 is a crimper for EMT conduit. That is electrical metallic tubing, half-inch size. They made them in different sizes, and it simply crimps the fittings onto the tubing, onto the conduit. Now I'm putting pictures at the end of the video of the patents on this and so on, so check them out. And now I'm going to demonstrate this here in just a second. But what happened to me is I went downtown, I went to 3 or 4 different stores trying to find the older style of conduit fittings that crimped on, but I don't know, I guess they must be obsolete, and this is all I could find, the kind that screws on. There's a coupling and then there's an adapter to a box. But of all things, in the mail I received a nice box from Bill Lee out in the state of Washington, and he sent me, this is a crimper, so much simpler than the other one, but I'm going to use it here in a second. And then a whole bag full of the fittings, the older style crimp-on type fittings. They're really much simpler and probably cheaper to make, and they would have had couplers and just all kinds of different fittings available with that. And these are what I remember the best, seeing the electricians install using a crimper tool. Now I had to go downtown and buy some half-inch EMT, so let me cut off a few pieces of that. And thank you, Bill, for sending this along so I can demonstrate this. You probably remember me buying this little Milwaukee mini saw several years ago, and one of the uses for it was for electricians to cut off conduit. So watch how nicely this works. This tool was made by the Briegel Method Tool Company in Galva, Illinois. That's not too far from where I am, but obviously they made it in different sizes, and that's how I found the patent number for this. But interestingly enough, I read the history on this company, and they made fittings as well. And at one point in time, this company was bought out by Appleton. Do you remember Appleton fittings in a red box? I used to work at Monarch Electric, and they sold the heck out of these Appleton fittings. Every kind of electrical fitting you can imagine. I'm sure they've been gobbled up by somebody else by now as well. Alright, let's see how this thing works. By the way, you want to make sure you remove all the burrs so when you draw the wire through, you don't damage the wire. But anyway, those fit on just like that, and all we do is take the crimper, and notice that there's 2 little, oh, I don't know what you call them there, and they'll leave a dimple in the work, in the fitting. Now that didn't take much effort to do, and I think it's on there for life. 2 dimples. Let's do another one just for the pure pleasure of it. Now I'll use the one that Bill Lee sent to me, and it looks so much simpler and probably so much cheaper to manufacture. This thing has got all kinds of parts. Here we're reduced to probably half the number of parts in manufacturing I'm talking about. And let me see if it is more difficult to squeeze and to apply. Not really. Not really. Just about the same. One more, that was fun. it's shorter. This could be put in the electrician's back pocket. This would be way too heavy to put in your pocket. Pull your pants down. All right, on to the next item. Everybody knew what item 2 was. It's a sheet metal flanging tool, and it's used with an air chisel, and it offsets the metal, typically a panel on an automobile, so that you can weld it and the seam will be invisible. But someone said it's not just for auto body men, that many other trades can use it, sheet metal trades I should say. But looking at the die here, I took a very small scrap of sheet metal and tapped it into submission, and this is the kind of offset that it produces. To me, it had a little bit of a tendency to want to shear the metal, but you could lay your other piece on like that and weld it on and fill it in and so on, and it doesn't stick up. It seems like that's a little bit too much of an offset there, but this is very thin metal. But then again, so is a Ford. But that's what that tool is for. And finally, this little brass protractor, which is an antique tool, quite pretty, has a bubble level in it, and a protractor and a little screw to clamp it on to a square or a ruler. And I'm not sure the exact name, but it could be an inclinometer, it can be a level, it can be a protractor, it can be, well, just about anything you want to call it. Let me put it on a ruler and I'll show you. Here it is clamped onto a wooden Stanley rule, and you can see that you can check for level, but you could also loosen up this screw and reset the protractor. You see there's a little witness mark right there, let's say for 45 degrees or whatever degree, and you could use it as a, I guess you'd say, inclinometer. But in the patent drawing, all it does is call this a spirit level. There's some vice marks on there. I don't know from the factory or if Bubba was at work, but it's really a nice little antique tool. Solid brass. No antifreeze in there, just alcohol, so it's not green like the modern ones. It's clear. Well, that concludes this episode of What Is It? Hope you liked it. Be sure and watch the other ones. This is Mr. Pete saying so long for now. See you next time.